Welcome to A Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach with Mark Gellard and Candy Reed, sponsored by the ERT 300. Well, a warm welcome to all our listeners and viewers on the latest edition of Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach with me, Candy, and of course, Mark Gellard. Mark, I am in Acapulco. I was trying to actually turn my camera around so you can see the unbelievable backdrop from my hotel room. Once again, we've just hit the jackpot in terms of hotel rooms. So that's where I am, Acapulco, but it was just too bright. You can tell us, I think you're actually not that far from me.
No, we are in Mérida at the moment. So we're, very close to you, actually. It's about a 2-hour flight from Miami. So it was a pretty easy journey for us. And there's a 500 level event here this week. So we get started tomorrow.
So you're doing the WTA. I'm on ATP duty. Just quickly to fill our viewers and listeners in, I've actually got some great video from Media Day, because on Sunday we interview all the players, about 9 of the players. So it was Alexander Zverev, the top seed, Tommy Paul, Ben Shelton, Francis Tiafoe, and a whole host of others. Denis Shapovalov I met for the very first time. And we just had the best time. I am able to get, because now I know through this podcast and other people, I know a lot of the coaches. And so I'm able to get some inside information. And so being a big Swiftie, I actually asked Tiafoe about his meeting with Taylor Swift last year. And we got a great answer. It's all over social media today. We also heard about Tommy Paul's fishing trip. And I asked him last year, Mark, whether he'd prefer to have the Queen's title at 500 level, which he said was his most favourite title to date, or if he'd rather the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And he said neither. Actually, he'd prefer the moment where he caught a wahoo in Florida. It's a fish, apparently. I don't know what that is. But so you just get unbelievable information at these things, and the guys really relax and have fun. So now let's go to where you are, Mérida. Are you having fun?
Well, the guys seem to be much more relaxed than we are, or than I am. Tommy's a really nice guy. I know him from when he was very young. I don't know him well, but I know him when he was young. He's a really great player, and he's having an unbelievable year. So yes. I'm really happy for him. Mérida, Mexico, I think, is one of the best places. I wish they'd give them even more tournaments. I think they do such a great job here of organizing the events. They're really well attended. The prize money is excellent. The hotels are always top class. So really, really nice to come back here and have the great hospitality. And of course, the Mexican food is always fun.
Brilliant. So Magda's playing there. Let's now, we haven't got that long because I've unfortunately got to get to work. Unfortunate and not unfortunate, because what I do is not really work. I couldn't call it that anyway. But let's just talk about the issues at hand, because there's been a few of them. I'd love to know, firstly, your thoughts on Elena Rybakina. There's been a lot that's come out recently on Stefanov Fukov. Of course, he's under investigation, isn't he? And he's currently suspended by the WTA. It's a difficult subject to talk about because none of us actually really know what happened. But I've seen a lot of dialogue. I've seen a big report. And it sounds like there's something to be answered from, particularly on his behalf. Seems like there's been a personal relationship between these two, a little bit of coercive control, if you can call it that. Again, it's hard to say, isn't it, from an outsider point of view? You don't want to label these things liberally. But what's your kind of vibe from inside the WTA tour?
I have to be honest, we don't know a whole lot more than everyone else, other than that it was investigated and he's been given a suspension. It's 1 year. But she doesn't seem to be in agreement with that finding, and she wants to have him back on the road with her as soon as possible. So I did see today that she stopped working with a fitness trainer as well. As of today, he's departed, and obviously Goran Ivanisevic left as well. Look, I think it's not something I love to talk about because I don't know all the facts, and I think that it's so tough to know what some people need. And, there's obviously, it's a tricky subject because the WTA obviously has to keep the players safe and protected. But in a way, coaching in general is about manipulation. It's about controlling. It's about brainwashing to a certain level, right? That you have to make these players eat, sleep, and dream tennis. And there's a certain manipulation now where I think there is a line, and a lot of coaches have to be careful of that line. But I think where you have a real issue is when the players are young. That's when there's a big problem. Elena now is, I don't know how old she is, to be honest with you, 25, something like that.
Early 20s, yeah.
Yeah. So she's old enough now to be able to make her own decisions, and I think it's a tricky situation because she's an adult. She can choose what she wants. Everyone's going to have an opinion, but all these opinions are irrelevant because they're not part of her team. They don't know the ins and outs of it, and so it's just speculation. So I think it's a tricky one. But what I would like is I would like to have him come out and make some kind of public statement and see what, hear his side of the story a little bit. Because I think we've heard from the WTA, we've heard from her, obviously other coaches and commentators, I should say, have made their opinions well known, but we haven't heard from him. So I think that would be the next step.
Yeah, and I've just looked it up. She's actually 25, so you were bang on. Of course, Jannik Sinner is a big story, isn't it? On the men's side, that he's out for another 3 months and coming back, it looks like, to his home tournament in Rome. Again, really difficult to talk about because we don't know 100% of the facts. From what WADA said, the World Anti-Doping Agency, it was not a doping situation. Very unfortunate. There was a slight amount of clostebol. And I was just looking up this. It seems like Italy has been hit hard by it because it's not illegal there, and it's in a lot of medications, particularly for treating cuts. But you'd think maybe the Italians at this point, having had quite a few athletes found guilty of this, or they've come back with problems in doping control, that maybe they'd just get rid of it. But I don't know your thoughts, and again, what's going on the tour side.
I would imagine there's a lot of comments that, I think that I listened the other day to Andy Roddick's podcast, Surfed. He does a good job on there. And he had, I think it was Karen Morehouse, was it? I think her name is, I could be wrong on that, with the ITIA. She's with the Tennis Integrity Anti-Doping Control. I listened to that. I was disappointed because Andy, in the segment I heard, maybe I didn't hear all of it, that's why, but he didn't push back a lot on her answers. But she claimed that there was a 10-day window from when a player is tested positive before they'll announce anything. I think, and then in that time, he had the opportunity to rebuttal what had been accused of him. I think this is where there's a lack of transparency. I think the same with Iga. I think, for example, during the Asian swing last year, Iga announced that she wasn't going to play Asia on Twitter or Instagram because she was tired, needed a rest, and wanted to find a new coach. We since then learned that that was not the reason why she didn't go. And it seems very odd to me that she was allowed to take that ban, then suspend that ban temporarily to play the year-end championships, and then reapply that suspension for the off-season where there's no events. That seems and that would be my questions. How has that happened? With Jannik's situation, I know from speaking to other players that you're going to be lucky if that ITIA or whoever's in charge of that WADA anti-doping is even going to open your email in 10 days. That's the thing. And that's, to me, where there's the favoritism or the unfair treatment of different players, is I think that the bigger name players are getting the opportunity to defend themselves much quicker. And that's their advantage. I don't have any thoughts that I think that they're not, that the drug testing is different for the better players or whatever. That's not the case at all. But what I do think is happening is that there's certain players that are getting preferential treatment in regards to how quickly their cases are being looked at and expedited. And it's not a good look for tennis when two number ones, male and female, get suspended in the same year pretty much.
Yeah.
And both of them don't miss a slam. I don't even think Sinner's or Iga's prize money was taken away at all of the events they played. But my questions to the people in charge would be, what is the resources that Iga has as well to defend herself in those 10 days are going to be much more than, say, someone ranked 150. Yeah. But what I think is that there needs to be the same treatment, and I just don't believe they would have opened those emails and provided, because she said that once Sinner had received that provisional ban with the positive test, he was then given those 10 days to provide documentation, a story or an alibi of how it got into his system, provide the batch of product that he said was contaminated, And then they were able to get their 2 scientists to test the way that he claimed it was absorbed into his body. That's all done within a 10-day period. I don't believe that some other players that have been tested positive, whether it's Max Purcell or Kamil Majchuk from Poland, for example, are going to have that same expedited preferential treatment. And that, to me, is where there's a problem. Now, the problem is as well is that, again, I don't know the protocol. So it's just, I think what needs to come out is we need to go, okay, the top people from WADA or the ITA need to go, okay, this is what happened with Kamil Majchuk's case, or with Nicholas Jarry's case, right? Or with Halep. And let's get some explanations of why certain players were allowed to keep playing, why some only got 3 months, because it's not about the actual drug itself. For me, like you said, if that drug is in a lot of stuff in Italy, that's still Jannik's responsibility. That's on him. And he has taken responsibility for that.
Yes.
And I don't doubt that a lot of these players didn't intend to cheat or dope. But the bottom line is, and I feel that this is what a lot of players are going to say, if the same thing happened to a player such as Magda or a lower ranked player, are we going to get that same rapid, expedited behavior from the authorities that be? And I think that's where the discontent is amongst the players. It's the sort of lack of transparency and fairness and explanation. And I think we saw when Sharapova came out, she flat out admitted that she'd been taking it and her agent Max Eisenbud hadn't checked up on the latest changes to what was allowed and not. And so she sort of kind of came out and said yes, and they threw the book at her in a way. And she was done. Whereas some other players that maybe have some, the stories we've heard over the years, everything from medication falling into pasta, kissing, whatever other events that stories, I feel that this is now going to become more of a problem when these stories are getting away with it.
Yeah, no, it's not unfair what you've said. I think it's so tricky, isn't it? Because obviously, like you said, Jannik Sinner and Iga Swiatek can afford the best teams. And from what I've been hearing with a lot of journalists, like Courtney Walsh, who's a top Australian journalist, Sinner's team followed the right protocol. They did everything right. And rather than trying to deny that he was guilty of taking or having this substance in his body, they went right to the source of how it got there. And that saved them a lot of time and a lot of effort. And so they got to the truth quicker. Whereas someone like Magda wouldn't be able to afford those amazing resources that Sinner was. So it's never going to be the same, isn't it? And I suppose you could say life isn't fair. One of us drives a lovely car or takes a private jet. The other one goes economy, and it takes a lot longer to get there. And that's never, ever going to be level pegging field, is it? It's just never going to be.
No, I agree. I think, look, if OJ could get off because he had great lawyers, then anything can happen with a good lawyer. But I think the issue is that this is a big subject right now. And much like we have in the Premier League, where we're talking about referees with VAR wanting to make the recordings of what's being discussed in the studio available to the public, the ITIA needs to do a better job now of making this clearer about what the protocol is, why certain players are getting what they're getting, why certain other players aren't getting that. Because it seems to the naked eye for people that are on the outside that don't have all the facts like me, what happens is then we speculate. If we don't have the information, we speculate, and that just makes things even worse. But there does seem a pattern that if you have certain financial affordances at your disposal, you get certain things are treated differently. And it's not a great look for tennis. Having the number one in men's and women's both get positive tests this year. And again, the last thing I'll say is it seems as well like a lot of some of these stories, you start to question, when they've got this much power, these agents or these top companies, maybe they already have some created stories available. I sound like a conspiracy theorist now, but some of these stories they're coming up with, they're either so ridiculously wild that they have to be true, or they've been preconceived because there's so many ways now that you can excuse a substance being inside of you that people need to have these ideas or these stories already sort of determined in a way. I'm not sure if I'm being clear there, but I just think that some of these stories of how this has happened is so wild that I don't know if I believe it.
Yeah, and that is a shame because we love the sport. It's such a terrific sport, isn't it? And the athletes playing it are just putting in so much work. I was in the gym this morning in Acapulco, and everybody's in there. You know, they're working so hard to stay at the top level. And unlike a football or a rugby, there's no guaranteed money. So if you're injured, you're not making anything, and you've got a staff of several in the ATP stances anyway. Let's go on to some good news, Mark. We've got about 2 minutes left. I'd love to know your thoughts on the Middle Eastern swing with Magda and what your plans are now.
We had a very nice swing there. I thought we had some good wins. We beat Renata Zarazua and Pavlyuchenkova, and in Doha we beat Magda Freck and somebody else. Do you know who else we beat? I can't remember.
I can't remember what happened yesterday, Mark.
No, I don't remember. We had another win. So we won some matches, a tough week in Dubai, but yeah, we certainly seem to be on the upswing a little bit here, and we are playing a tough match tomorrow against Elisabetta Cocciaretto.
Yes.
So it will be a tough dogfight out there. She's obviously a really good player and experienced now, so there's no easy matches on the WTA. So we're hoping we can keep pushing forwards with positive wins.
It was Veronika Kudermetova. I've just looked it up.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So good, 4 good wins in the Middle Eastern swing.
Yeah,
and confidence in the mood is high.
Yes, we are. We're feeling good with the way we're playing. We're always nursing some minor aches and pains, but that's what happens. She just turned 33, so it's it takes a little longer to recover from these longer matches, but we're feeling good with how we're playing at the moment. So hopefully
brilliant. We'll do a longer Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach soon, Mark. And you just quickly want to tell everyone about First Strike Network Consultancy, because we've got a coaching conference coming up 15th and 16th of March.
That's right. 15th and 16th of March, we have a online webinar, and we'll put the link in the bottom of this video for people to see. We did it last year and it was relatively successful. I mean, we had some great speakers, but my marketing skills are not excellent. So we'd like to try and get some more people out there this year, but we've got some really, really good speakers that are coming out. First of all, we'll have, of course, we'll have Magda. She's going to come on and do a speech about how she got to where she is and her sort of story. And the great thing with the webinar, the way we run it, the format is there'll be an opportunity for question and answers with her. We have Nicholas Hauser, who's a co-founder of a neuroscience company that's worked with some of the best athletes in the world, including Liverpool football. Justin Russ, a strength and conditioning trainer, who's going to come on and talk about his methodology and some great practical advice he's got. Dr. Elizabeth Ward, who is a psychologist graduate from Harvard University, who's worked with several WTA players and Olympic athletes. And we also have Rob Morgan coming on, who's a renowned doubles specialist coach from England, who's worked with the #1 player. I think he's won 7 Grand Slams as a coach. And then we'll have Raj Chaudhary coming on, who's the husband of Jill Krabus. He's worked with a lot of great players, and he currently works with Bethany Maddox-Sands. And he's got some excellent devices that he's created that he uses that he's going to talk about. And then Shreyas is going to come back on and talk about some new advancements in the data analysis and performance analytics. There'll be myself talking as well for one presentation. Then we have Curtis Stefan coming on as well, who's going to talk a lot about, which is a real interesting subject for a lot of people now, is racket customization, knowing the new strings, which combinations to use, how to change the tension based on altitude, grip build-ups, everything that you can want to know about racket customization. So I think it will be a real interesting conference. We'll put the link below. And we're hoping to get some people come out and watch.
15th and 16th of March, and the price is unbelievable for the weekend. All right, Mark, I better leave it there because I've got to go and get to work. Thank you so much. Good luck in Mérida. And we will speak soon. We'll have a longer Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach next.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Candy. Thanks, everyone.